Torture and who is allowed to define it. Torture, according to the United Nations Convention Against Torture, which we are a part of, is any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person in response to an act or a way of gaining information. Though our own presidential administration refuses to define torture under certain laws as to keep it behind closed doors and poorly regulated. It just tends to take on new, made-up names like enhanced interrogation techniques, allowing them to do whatever they see fit. Should our government be able to decide who should and shouldn't be tortured? Should they be able to do as they please with people because it's under the table, yet not expect our enemies to employ the same tactics with our prisoners? So is the threat of killing one's family or breaking a few fingers to get mostly unreliable and inaccurate information worth losing the morality of our country? Under the immense pressures of torture, victims will tell you or admit to anything to stop cruel acts, but more times than not, that information is unreliable and not worth the time and moral degradation it provides. The uncivilized and immoral acts that come with this tradition condone brutality and ultimately affect the reputation of our own nation by giving us no leg to stand on when our citizens are in those same situations. According to Carlton Meyer of military.com, torture may save some lives, but it is likely to end up backfiring and cause more American deaths in the long run. Even assuming torture may prevent an attack, the problem is that reports of torture by Americans cause anger towards the United States and spawn more terror attacks. One of the reasons that most Iraqis now hate American occupiers is because of the widespread and sanctioned torture in Iraq. After the routine torture at Abu Ghraib prison was exposed, the U.S. Army dispatched investigators who determined that 80% of the arrested Iraqis had committed no crime, yet had to endure humiliating and vile conditions. According to The New Yorker, men, women, and teenagers were crammed into small cells, forced into degrading positions such as public masturbation, nudity, extreme conditions, and starvation. Not to mention homosexual acts and men being nude in front of other men is strictly against Islamic law, making it an even more emotional form of torture. Many people willing to accept torture as a reliable way to extract information assume that the government has perfect knowledge of the captive's guilt, and that he has information they seek, though this is often not the case. As we have come to find out, many of the captives we have tortured in the past are low-level combatants with no real information at all, and some are even innocent men who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Also, contrary to most beliefs, it's very rarely quick or immediate. You have to break someone, not just physically, but mentally, and that takes time. William Schultz, the head of Amnesty International USA, wrote in 2002 that torture almost always takes a long time. Days and weeks, not hours and minutes, to produce results. As for the ticking time bomb scenario, in its purest form, it is a fantasy of moral torture all too easily appropriated by the tyrants as an excuse to justify the more mundane variety. No matter how much you torture someone, if they truly believe in something, you're not going to change their mind. These captured people are trained not to give up information, trained to withstand these torture methods, and usually have no problem risking their lives to maintain their silence. According to New York Times, when forced to answer questions regarding waterboarding torture, administration officials dismiss it as being improper talk of vital national security measures, and rely on the fact that what they say goes, and members of Congress, journalists, and others have to accept it instead of probing beneath the surface to stop it. Not only is torture morally wrong, it is completely illegal in the U.S. and goes against many laws and treaties that we have in place. Due to recent events, people are becoming more accepting and able to turn a blind eye towards torture, yet they don't realize how ineffective, unreliable, and damaging to our country's image it is, as well as the extreme effects it has on victims during and after these situations. I now stand for cross-examination.
As you stated earlier, you said that the information that the terrorists give you cannot be reliable. How do you know that the information is not reliable?
When the Army sent in investigators to most of the prisons that we were holding in Iraq, they found that over 80% of the people were innocent and didn't do anything. They were usually bystanders that were taken in during military sweeps, and they usually weren't people who had any real information worth going through all that pain.
And also, what if we didn't have the time for them to break when we're doing torture? And you stated earlier that the information that they provide breaks them mentally and physically. What if we don't have that time?
Then you can't torture them. To torture them, you have to have that time to break them mentally and physically. If they believe in the things that they're talking about, then they're not going to give up that information. People with actual information are trained not to give it up. They'll risk their lives for it.